They have a combined 12 years in the National Football League. They combined for 65 career sacks, 232 tackles, 1 Pro Bowl selection, and 1 Employee of the Month award.
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
It's Train and Grose on the All AZ Podcast Network.
Welcome in, Train and Grose. Bertrand Berry, Mike Grose, Sean Crespin coming at you, and we're starting things a little bit differently here today. We're recording this on May 25th, the day after school shooting in Texas, and you know we do this podcast. We have fun doing this podcast. We dad jokes, and pump the brakes, and all kinds of fun stuff. But sometimes life happens and gets in the way, and you got to talk about it.
Yep.
You got to put it out there, and I think each of us have, unfortunately, our thoughts, our perspective on this. We'll hear from Steve Kerr in a minute. He shared some thoughts before the game last night in Texas, as a matter of fact.
A guy who has probably the most unique perspective on that situation.
Because of his father.
Yeah.
Because of his father. He's lived with this since he was a teenager.
Correct.
And but you're from Texas. Your mother's an educator. You've talked a lot about her on the radio shows and on the podcast about, you know, how important she was to you, clearly as your mother, but as an educator in your community, and the way people look up to teachers in a community, and the responsibility that teachers feel to their students, the good students, the bad students, and everybody in between. There's a responsibility that educators take, and I can't even imagine being in that role.
Yeah.
I can't.
Mike, I've struggled with this the last day and a half, and when I first heard it, I just thought to myself, here we go again. We've seen this. It seemed like a carbon copy of the Sandy Hook situation out in, I believe, Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken, where the young man shot his grandmother, then went on into the school. And to me, if you are running from a law, if you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, even the most hardened criminal wouldn't go to an elementary school and shoot up teachers. This was personal, Mike. This was something that was very sought out. He went to a specific room and he took the lives of 19 children from the ages of 8 to 10 years old. Mike, I've had 3 kids that have been 8 to 10 years old, and I can't imagine what an 8 or a 10-year-old has done to make you want to take a rifle and a handgun into their room and just shoot all of them for whatever reason. Yeah. We'll never know the reason. I don't care to know the reason, and I don't care to know this individual's name because we're not going to give him any type of shine because that's what he did it for. But when I think about the 2 teachers, the first thing I thought about was my mom. And I thought about my son who's in school. Mike, they've got 2 days of school left.
Yep. When
the shooting happened yesterday, they were supposed to get out Thursday. So to me, there's no coincidence in this situation at all. This was premeditated. This was hatred at its core. And I think for this man and what he took from 21 different families, it's immeasurable to think that you can't even go to school and feel safe. Like, it's one thing to go out in public and every parent has the worry of letting their child go somewhere, go to the mall, go to a football game, go out somewhere in public, go to a school, go to a party or of some sort. You always worry about something happening to your child. Who are they with? That's why you ask the questions. Who are you going with? Who's there? Whose parents are there? How long are you staying? When are you going to be home? These are all questions that you ask because of moments like this. And when you see something like this happen, it brings all of that fear right back to the surface, to the point where I didn't want my son to go to school today, Mike. My son's 16 years old, and I was scared for him to go to school because what if somebody else took this idea? Because that idea he took directly from Sandy Hook. Yeah. The gentleman in Sandy Hook shot his mom and then went to Sandy Hook elementary school and did the same thing. So this isn't even original. That's the part that's so hard to take with this, that there's so much evil out there for somebody to do that to an 8-year-old child. And Mike, I don't know about you, but I've looked at social media and I've seen the pictures of some of these innocent babies.
No.
These are babies.
No, and similar but different from you. My wife is a school principal. And I was telling you this yesterday. I was working from home yesterday. I was aware of what went on, and saw on social media, saw all the story building. And my wife, 4 o'clock, she'll send me a text, on my way.
Sure.
And I know the routine.
Yeah.
She's very close to home.
Right.
So it takes her tops 15 minutes to get home.
Okay.
I hear the garage door open.
Sure.
She's home. I know the car sound pulling into the garage.
It's routine every day.
And then I know shortly thereafter she's in the house. Hey, how's your day, et cetera.
5 out of 7 days of the week, you know that routine.
Garage
like the back
door
of your hand.
opens yesterday. The car pulls into the garage. She doesn't come in. She doesn't come in. I'm like, maybe she's on the phone. She's sitting in this car crying because she was listening to the news and said, what would, I'm a principal.
Yeah.
Responsibility.
Right.
What would I do? I'm not prepared. She has her doctorate. She's the smartest person I know.
Sure.
She has her doctorate. And she said, what would I do?
What can you do? Mike, I've heard, and we talked about this off air, the new protocol for drills for elementary school kids. The kids that are closest to the door are supposed to wave their hands in the air and throw objects in the air to be a decoy. No 9-10-year-old child is supposed to be a decoy for his classmates. What are we talking about in elementary school where you're teaching 10-year-olds to be decoys for a monster?
I've never heard. I don't have kids like you guys do. I've never heard that before.
It's the new normal.
Insanity.
That's where we are. That's where we are in 2022. They're asking 10-year-old babies to be something that they were never supposed to be at school. A decoy for a monster with a gun.
And my question is, how did we get here? And because we've talked about this all the time. I'm the oldest one.
Sure.
Of the group here. And when I graduated from high school,
When I graduated from high school, this wasn't. You didn't think
What year
about
did
it.
you
We
graduate?
had Columbine had happened 2 years before I graduated.
So
I was in high school when that happened.
Okay.
But this wasn't.
So unfortunately,
a thing.
right? But unfortunately for you, the threshold had been crossed because of Columbine.
Right.
Right. You're 10 years younger than me, I think.
Yeah, I was class of 93.
So we never.
Mike, our drills were for lights going out.
Or fire drill.
Or fire drill.
Or how
it
to
was
get off a
never
bus that
for
crashes.
What happens if a monster walks into your car into your school with an AR-15 or AK-47?
It's
an automatic rifle. Like, how does someone that young, 18 years old, have access to something that deadly?
Yeah.
That's the question we have to ask. And I mean, that's a story for another day. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But to think that 10-year-old babies have to be responsible for their classmates, Mike, what are we talking about?
Look, it's 2022. We're sending people to outer space. We're doing, and I heard a number, and I can't remember what it was. Whatever the number is, it's too big, of children and teachers, educators that have died in school shootings since Columbine. If it was a disease, if it was an enemy, if it was, we're smart. We figure these things out. How? And again, I don't want to. You run the risk of it turning it political.
Mike,
it can't be normal.
Mike,
it can't be. And the problem that I have with this is, and I was guilty of it yesterday till Karen got home. Like, I see it on Twitter. Oh shit, another school shooting. Go back to work. You almost become desensitized to it until you, again, the details that you gave, and then you sit back and you let it soak in, and you're like, man, again.
Mike, I want to hold on to something you said, but I want to get this out. In 2022, we're not even halfway through this year yet.
Yeah.
There've already been 212 mass shootings. 212 mass shootings in the 2022 calendar year already. We're in May still. It's still May. We're not even halfway through 2022, and we're already at 212. That means 212 times somebody has had the idea to go to a public place and shoot randomly.
A church, a supermarket, a school.
A school, an elementary school. Mike,
And to your point around what gets people to, like, the hatred that has to live within somebody. Again, a school, as you described it. The supermarket.
There's things that we don't know about this one.
and it'll come out over time, unfortunately.
Yes.
But in California recently, a church in Southern California.
Michigan. There was one in Michigan.
There was Michigan. The supermarket in Buffalo just last week.
10 days ago.
A racist attack at a church. And that was clearly documented because this man, again, with you not naming names, left behind a manifesto. And we'll talk about it. Last night.
I just want to say, I want to come back to it real quick because we have some sound. A guy that talked about this cannot be the new normal, as you said. It cannot be as a guy that we have a lot of respect for who is part of the sports world. Head coach Steve Kerr of the Golden State Warriors. And
he talked about it pregame last night. We'll get to sports later on in this thing. But life, sports, and Steve Kerr, his family. He knows as a teenager.
Directly.
And this was him last night in Dallas.
When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm sorry. I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. And
that is a small piece of a much larger statement. You can find that out on social media. You probably already heard it already.
Of course.
But overshadowing, and again, that was in Dallas, which is a couple hours away from where
it's about 400 miles.
The shooting happened.
Yep.
Again, we had to talk about it.
Yes.
Hopefully, thank you for indulging us, but it's real. It's close.
Yeah.
Each of us, educators.
And talking about it is I think it's good as long as you don't fall down those rabbit holes, because the last thing you want is for what you said, Mike. You look at your phone and go, oh, another shooting. Yeah. You know what I mean? When you don't talk about this, it just you allow yourself to get desensitized to it. Yeah. Talk about it. Those pictures you're talking about, B-Train. I'm scrolling Twitter and I'm seeing them too, and your heart just, oh my God, you just ache for it.
Yeah.
But that aching needs to happen. Otherwise, you do just become, there's another one.
They become nameless and faceless. If you don't put a name and a face to this horrific situation, it'll just be another footnote in yesterday's news.
Yep.
And I think for us, the fact that we're here talking about it, the one thing that I want to see, because I didn't see this yesterday, is I just want to say to all of those families out there, God bless you. We're praying for you. My heart and my prayers are definitely with you. Mike, I watched 2 hours coverage of this on NBC, and I didn't hear that.
No.
I didn't hear our thoughts and our prayers are with the family. They talked about everything else except the actual victims. And to me, it started off as 14. There were 14 victims.
Yeah.
Then it went to 18. Then it went to 19 and 2 teachers. It's like, just when you think it's bad, it gets worse. It's like, oh my God, 14 is bad enough. 14 babies, that's bad. Oh my God, now it's 19 babies. Now it's 19 babies and 2 teachers. And the thing that always bothers me about that is those teachers had plans for today. Those kids had plans for tomorrow when they get out of school.
Summer break, like you said.
2 days before school's out, they all had plans to go somewhere and do something. And now those are things that will just never happen, and that's a shame.
Yeah. All right, we're going to step aside, and we'll come back and jump into it. This is Train and Grose.
Train and Grose.
Welcome back in, Train and Grose. Episode 73, B-Train. Look at us. Watch us grow. And episode number 73, that brings me to, I always like to pick the offensive lineman when it's obvious.
Yeah.
Larry Allen, Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
Let me give you his quick pedigree real quick.
Beast.
Went to junior college in Northern California, played college football at Division II, Sonoma State University.
Wow.
A program that shortly after he left the campus there in Rohnert Park, California, dropped football altogether. Mm-hmm. He was a second-round draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys, starred for the boys from 94 to 2005, got to go home and play a couple years with the 49ers, 2006 and 2007. And we talked about this on last week's podcast.
Yeah.
Is somebody worthy of that one-day contract to come back and retire?
Larry Allen is.
Larry Allen is and was.
Yep.
The Cowboys gave him that opportunity, signed him to a one-day contract, and he retired. And to even reinforce that more, his son, Larry Allen Jr., played football for Harvard so he was a smart guy.
Yeah.
Larry Allen Jr. was signed as an undrafted free agent by the Dallas Cowboys. Taking nothing away from his football prowess, but I think as another nod of respect to his father.
That just lets you know how much of an impact Larry Allen had on the Cowboys and what he meant to that team and that offensive line that set up so much success for Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman and everybody else and that was involved. And to be that dominant, Mike, he if you remember the interception against the New Orleans Saints, there was an interception and the guy that ran down the linebacker was Larry Allen. The linebacker was rolling, Mike. He had a head start. He had momentum running down the sideline. And all of a sudden, you just see this blur coming out of nowhere. And it's Larry Allen. I'm like, of all the people on the field.
Big man.
This man is rolling. And the fact that he was one of the strongest men in the NFL, as well as one of the quicker ones, that's just not fair to have all of that together in one package.
Obviously, his career overlapped yours to a certain extent.
Oh, I played against him a few times.
Yeah, and? Give us your favorite Larry Allen story.
So I remember, one of my favorite stories about him was he was a big dipper. He loved to have chewing dip in his mouth. Ew. And he owned a Rolls Royce. And the Rolls Royce was covered in spit stains.
Ew.
Because he used to, sometimes
in his car.
In his car, because, he would have the dip cup, obviously, because you're not going to spit that on the ground. He spit it in the cup. Well, sometimes,
spills over. The
cup runneth over. And, it would sometimes get on the upholstery, in the car.
That's
We're talking about a Rolls Royce. We're talking about the double R.
And he's got spit stains.
He's got spit stains in the double R. But as far as football is concerned, he was one of those one and done. If he got his hands on you, it was done. If he ever would get those paws on you, because when I tell you the man was country strong, Mike, like the numbers on the weights don't do it service.
Right.
If he get those big paws on you, it was all she wrote. You might as well just cancel that particular play and move on to the next one.
Did he talk?
No, he was not a talker. At the end of his career, he became a guy that was having fun out there.
Okay.
He loosened up a little bit, but when he was in Dallas, it was all business.
Okay.
And his business was mauling people, and he mauled you. He didn't want to just block you. He wanted to maul you. Like, he wanted to really let you know that you had just been witness to an awesome act of nature.
6'3", 335 is what he was listed at as playing weight.
And all the strength in the world, Mike.
Knew how to use it.
Mike, you remember the Pro Bowl when they used to have the strongman competition?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know how Larry Bird used to be like, come in, who's going for second? Who's lifting for second?
That's Larry Allen.
That's basically Larry Allen.
So you came in 97, right?
I came in 97. I played against him, I believe, twice or four times when he was with San Francisco, because we were in the same division.
Yeah.
But I think I got him a couple times, once in Indianapolis and another time in Denver when he was with the Cowboys.
So the 92-93 Cowboys, that era, that offensive line changed the way teams built up front.
You built from the inside out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
but the size,
yeah.
and not worrying if dude's 300 plus. Matter of fact, needing a dude 300 plus that can move a little bit,
absolutely,
became the norm.
Yeah.
So you kind of saw that change from start of your career in 97 until you retired here with the Arizona Cardinals. You kind of saw that overall mentality change, and I think he and that Dallas offensive line altered football going forward.
Oh, I mean, when I think about that offensive line, you had Gogan, you had Larry Allen, you had Eric Williams, you had Stepnowski. God, who am I missing?
I'm trying to pull it up myself here.
You had Kennard, who was a later starter.
That's right.
And then God, who was the other tackle for that team?
Come on, Grose.
Van Tuene. Tuene was another guard.
Yeah.
They were unbelievable. And the thing about them is they were durable. And you had these big giants of men who were blocking.
Maryland.
Well, he was defensive line.
He was defensive line, but I forgot about that name.
You had all these massive 6'5", 6'4", 330s, and then you got Emmitt Smith, 5'9".
Can't find him.
You can't find him.
Yeah.
Because you're getting mauled for one, and Emmitt had as many clear paths to the end zone as anybody. I mean, Mike, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Barry Sanders, one of the best running backs in all of NFL history. if he'd have had an offensive line like the Cowboys,
he'd still be playing.
He'd still be playing, and he'd still be
running.
He'd still have 1,500 yards.
They had
right now.
They had 3 first-team All-Pros on that offensive line in 1993 alone.
It was insane.
Nate Newton got the nod.
Nate Newton, that's who I forgot.
Yep.
Mark Newton.
Stepnowski
was the center,
as a center, and then Eric Williams
Eric
also
was the tackle.
on the right tackle. They had 3 on the same team.
They had those
first-team All-Pros.
They had those 3 in 93.
93.
And then they drafted Larry Allen in 94.
Yeah.
So you talk about how you build a football team.
Come on. That's not fair.
No.
Right?
3 first-team All-Pros on one offensive line before you drafted him.
Before you drafted Larry Allen.
And he was better than all of them.
Hall of Fame class of 2015, 11 Pro Bowls, 7 straight All-Pro seasons.
All right, so
14 years in the NFL.
You talk about two of your greatest, most accomplished moments on a football
tackles
field.
versus Barry Sanders.
2 tackles versus Barry Sanders.
Yes.
But what was Emmett like?
Emmett was a different beast because Emmett was he was Mr. Business Decision. Mm-hmm. He was a guy, he wasn't going to take shots because he knew the longevity was he had in mind, and Emmett was a teammate of mine. My first year here with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So I know Emmett very well, and he was a guy that was all about he had the long game in mind the whole time. He wanted to be one of those guys. He knew if he played long enough behind those guys that we just talked about, he was going to set the record for the all-time rushing yards lead.
Right.
And he methodically went about that business. And I think it was his 13th year or 13th year, his last year with the Cowboys, he actually accomplished that against the Seattle Seahawks.
Yep.
And and he only padded those stats once he got here, but for Emmett, he was not a guy that was going to take a lot of shots, and fortunately for him in his career, he didn't really have to.
Who was the running back that maybe doesn't get the national pub that you guys on the field as defensive players going up against them made you think a little bit more going into
made you think about a business decision?
Yeah, well, not necessarily a business decision, but somebody that doesn't have that household name that on the field, those on the field knew this guy actually is he's legit. Makes me it brings a little extra to the table. Maybe it's physicality, or if it's a little wiggle. Who made you pause a little bit that maybe doesn't have the national attention?
Natron Means.
Natron Means business.
Wow.
Chargers.
Natron Means.
He brought it. Yeah, he brought a little bit
load, brother.
Yeah.
He was about 5'9", 5'10", but he was about all of 250, 260 coming at you.
What's Wolf say? Fire hydrant with lips?
Hydrant with lips.
Thank you, Ron Wolfley.
He was coming, and when I tell you he was a load to bring down, he was a load to bring down.
Going back to Emmitt Smith in the 2 years here.
Yeah.
I remember his first year here because that's the year, and I forget. And
I wasn't here yet. That was 2003.
So the first year he was here, you were the second year. So you didn't do, I don't know if you remember this, the Arizona Cardinals went out and played, but they did an open scrimmage at Glendale High School.
Oh, wow.
They did do that. I forgot about that.
Right when they were trying to get the vote on the stadium, or maybe it was after the vote passed. Yeah. And the big thing was that the Cardinals went in and they totally redid the stadium, put down the turf because NFL players weren't going to go in on whatever Glendale High was playing on.
That's correct.
And Emmitt Smith was the man at that point, and the place was packed.
Yeah.
And it just became that once they committed to Glendale, and Glendale High School is one of the oldest schools in the state of Arizona. Kind of gave them that hey, here we are, Glendale.
That's right.
But you weren't part of that, so you didn't.
I was not part of that. I did not have the pleasure.
And I always wonder, in retrospect, you look at it as players, this feels like in retrospect a gimmick. Fans are like, this is so cool. We're going out to see the Cardinals right here, but it kind of felt like a gimmick.
Mike, anytime you have a scrimmage before the season starts, that's a gimmick.
Yeah.
the red and white scrimmage every year at State Farm Stadium, that's a gimmick because one, nobody's getting tackled really, and if you even think about hitting a quarterback, you're going to lose your job. Yeah. So it's all about the autographs and taking pictures and kissing babies and all that kind of stuff. It's along those lines. It gets everybody revved up for what they're about to endure during the season, which is a great season. So there's lots of gimmicks throughout the course of the season.
Let me ask you this, and apologize if I'm being football nerd geeking out talking to you and your experience on the field here.
No doubt.
But you brought up that Seattle game when Emmett broke the record. One of my favorite NFL Films moments is He's mic'd up for that, obviously.
Yep.
And he goes to the sideline, and Moose Johnston was calling the game for Fox, but he went down to the field, and Emmett just breaks down into tears, thanking him for a good 90 seconds, just bawling on his shoulder. And Moose Johnston talks about how much it was a pleasure blocking in front of him. But that's another change in the National Football League that you and your career saw.
The fullback.
Is and sorry, I mean, I thought about that after you brought up that Seattle game. I'm like, man, that moment was, you watch it and it gives you goosebumps as a football fan. Like Emmett just collapsing in Moose Johnston's arms, and Moose has got the bad back and the bad neck from all of that, But the fullback not being there as much anymore as a defensive player, as somebody that plays in the trenches, how different was that from start of career until you retired? Especially now, I mean, the fullback's a lost cause in the NFL at this point.
There's very few teams. I think the Patriots and the
Raiders were with Gruden, but
the Steelers. The Steelers are another one that's still
49ers. What's his name?
Yes, that's right. Juszczyk. Yeah, he keeps going to the Pro Bowl every year because there's nobody else. He and the guy from Baltimore. So for me, it impacted me more at the beginning of my career because I was a linebacker.
Yes.
And so when I played stack linebacker, I always tracked that fullback, and there were some collisions in the middle of that hole. I mean, you knew what was coming. You had your big boy pads on. You knew what time it was.
He's hitting your run gap. You're here we go.
You hit the run gap. You bow your neck, and you know what time it is. Somebody's going to get lights out. Somebody's going to sleep. It's either going to be me or him. And you know that going into it. You're okay with it. You sign up for it, and, hey, it is what it is. When you meet in the hole, you respect each other. You maybe help each other up. Maybe you don't. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of respect for both of those men because they understood that was not for everybody to be able to do. Not everybody could play those positions knowing what that position entails.
You're just there to be a battering ram at that point.
You're there to be a battering ram, but you also have to play within the confines of the scheme. You still have to be smart, heady. You still got to drop in coverage at times. So that was just a small part of the deal, but it was a big part of the deal if you had to do it 20, 30 times in a game.
That was just a significant difference in the NFL. It's amazing how much the game changes, within 10 years.
Or a tight end at the end of the line of scrimmage.
Right.
So, I mean, now you've got the Travis Kelce's and the Wallers.
Tight ends have more snaps now without their hand in the dirt than they do, and it used to be completely opposite.
Well, you look at some of these guys, just bigger, stronger.
Wide receivers.
Maybe a little bit slower wide receivers.
Absolutely.
Right. That's what they are. Speaking of the local team. Where we kind of were.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was geeking.
No, you're good. Yeah. I love it when you geek out. I'm going to read you something.
Go ahead.
And then we'll kind of digest this. Talking about the Arizona Cardinals off-season power ranking. Something doesn't feel right about the 2022 Arizona Cardinals. Part of it is the pointed dissatisfaction of quarterback Kyler Murray and his agent over a new contract. Part of it is the 6-game suspension of the best player on offense, DeAndre Hopkins, to start the season. Hollywood Brown arrived in trades to buttress the receiving core. But, of course, Christian Kirk left in free agent, as did the most dangerous player on defense, pass rusher Chandler Jones. There is a very odd vibe around this team, and the attitude in negotiations with Murray this summer will tell a lot about the chemistry of locker room for this team coming into training camp.
It's going to be a weird year, Mike. I really believe that. I think there's going to be a lot of change for the Arizona Cardinals. I think looking at this team and what they've been the last couple of years under Cliff Kingsbury and what they're going to be this year under Coach Cliff Kingsbury with some departures, some new additions. We saw Chase Edmonds talk about this when he said that the culture of the Cardinals could be a little better.
Should be more like the Steelers.
More like the Steelers.
To be fair, everybody should be more like a Mike Tomlin-led football team.
Think? And also the front office.
Yeah, all the way down.
So,
from the Rooney's all the way down.
They are a model organization. We'll give them that. But
absolutely.
Not a lot of Cardinal fans really want to hear that. I mean, it still burns. But I look at this team in 2022, and, Mike, there's so many questions. I have more questions than answers.
Yeah. When you think about it, when you look at the importance of DeAndre Hopkins to Kyler Murray. I don't think there's any question about that. Call him whatever you want, security blanket, whatever. DeAndre Hopkins will miss at least 13 games in a row if you go back to the injury of last year and add on the suspension of this year.
I didn't think of it that way. That's
Mike, you think about the running game. How important was he to the running game? Because that was an extra defender that they had to account for when you talked about, James Conner having those lanes to be able to run through.
Yeah.
He's a guy that just paid, and you let Chase Edmonds walk out the door without any compensation. So how is the running game going to look without DeAndre Hopkins? Because there's no fear there for A.J. Green. With all due respect, I mean, he's a guy that deserves respect, but he's not the fear.
Hopkins.
He's not the fear factor that he once was when he was in Cincinnati.
I know DeAndre Hopkins.
That's correct.
Yeah. Peter King was the author of that quote, if I didn't say it.
Yeah.
His football, whatever it is. Whatever, Peter King's writing
Football
for
Morning in America or something like that.
He's got the Cardinals at 22. And this is the thing that's interesting to me, because I went and you know, I already mentioned Wolf once, but I'll do this again. Power rankings and that, I get it, but I also understand it, and especially off-season power rankings.
Sure.
Like, don't talk to me about schedule predictions. Don't talk to me about power rankings until you have a final roster the first weekend of September. The thing about it is, and we talked about this a lot last year leading up into the season, about, you know, and Sean brought up appropriately at the time, like, you look at the schedule, you look at everything, and they outperformed it last year. I just don't have that same feeling this year. But if you go back and look at it, tell me 7 teams in the NFC that are better than them. Well, there's a lot better at the top, but if you had to name your 7 playoff teams in the NFL, I don't know that I'd put the Cardinals on my list right now.
Right.
But they wouldn't be, like, at the end, keep them totally off the list either. I think and part of it is due to the watered down nature of what's happening in the NFL right now. But in the NFC, you just got to get in.
Yeah.
Get in, and then, you know, you're back-to-back playoff seasons. But I don't have that feeling, and I think he hit the nail on the head when he said it's just a really odd vibe around the Cardinals right now.
It is a really odd vibe, and the thing that hurts them the most is the fact that in their own division, you had the 2 representatives in the NFC Championship game last year.
Yep.
Los Angeles Rams, San Francisco 49ers, who aren't going anywhere, by the way. There are a lot of question marks about the 49ers, but the team overall is still a very solid team, and they look to be right back where they were last year. Same thing with the Los Angeles Rams. Seattle, you don't know what's going to happen with that team. They're kind of waiting on the Baker Mayfield sweepstakes, in my opinion. They're just waiting on the Browns to do the right thing and release him so they can be on the hook for that, $18 million that they owe him for that fifth-year option. So it's going to be a competitive division. There's going to be a lot of teams that knock each other off. So they may benefit from that, because with the Rams and the 49ers, nobody's going to go 6-0 in the division because it's just too deep a division. So you figure if you can go 3-3, 4-2, that's a pretty good division record this year in 2022 for any team in the NFC West. And then it becomes we got to win enough games outside of the division to put your hat in the ring.
And everybody in the NFC West this year gets to play the AFC West, which I believe we all agree has surpassed the NFC West as the best division in football.
Mike, don't forget the AFC North.
Well, there's that, but I'm just saying who they play this year, right?
Yeah, right.
You know, so if you're the 49ers, you're the Rams, Cardinals,
right.
Seahawks,
To that point, yes.
You get the Raiders, you get the Chargers, you get the Bronx and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So,
oh my goodness.
You know, so
that's
you've got
murderous, right?
on top of your NFC West schedule, you know those 4 games.
Yes.
So, you know, already you're looking at, as you said, murderer's row. You know, you get 6 and 4. You got 10 of your 17 are. And when the strength of schedule based on last year's results came out, I forget where it was, but the Cardinals, 49ers, Rams, all in the top 5 with the most difficult schedules going into the 2022
They were
season.
at least 3rd in that, so they'll get the 3rd-ranked teams from the other.
And that might have been
other
the that may have been the differential.
2 games will be the against a team that ranked 3rd in one of the other divisions.
And the Seahawks, of course, they get the benefit of the last place, and so they were still, for a team that finished last place, they were still very high.
Yes.
But they've got these. So, you know, a lot of questions still to be answered. We're just in a voluntary camp right now, and so
where the starting quarterback is not.
Where the starting quarterback and a bunch of other veterans are not. And let's start there with the quarterback. Look, you know, and I was listening to local sports talk, and this is obviously now that the Suns are starting to fade into the rearview mirror a little bit, the Kyler Murray situation came up. And I heard somebody say it on local radio. It's like, the timing, okay, that's the issue. Because the money is going to be what the money's going to be.
Is it, though?
I mean, the market.
What do we have to show for it? Yes, he's a guy that he's improved every year as far as the overall team record. The team has improved, but has Kyler improved by leaps and bounds to deserve that top echelon money that he's inevitably going to probably get?
And let me ask you this, because I've resisted, and maybe we got to go down this path at some point, the comparisons or the analogies, whatever the right word is, with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Ayton. 2 different athletes, 2 different sports, 2 different teams. But the Suns, and this is where I'm going to go with this, the Suns made a decision to not pay DeAndre Ayton.
The right decision.
But at the point in time, it was a decision, which to your point has been made the correct decision. Does Michael Bidwell say, you know what? No, the market is 45. We think you're worth 35. Take it or leave it.
Mike, the only problem you take when you have a hard stance like that is, can you replace Kyler Murray with somebody in the draft that's just as good? No. In the next 2 drafts, you're not going to find a quarterback that's better than Kyler Murray.
Correct.
So you're stuck with Kyler Murray, and you don't have to pay him. You still got 2 years, and you've got 2 franchise years to wait and see what this guy is going to be. So there's no rush.
Isn't that a risk in and of itself, though, where we're at?
No, it's not a risk because they own the rights. If you own the rights to the guy, he can do whatever it is that he wants to do. He's only going to hurt his pocketbook when it's all said and done.
If he doesn't, if you take it to the extreme, because it's one thing to sit out OTAs or whatever they call it.
Mike, I sat out OTAs when I played.
It's optional.
It's not a big deal.
It's optional.
Yeah.
But once
voluntary mandatory.
Once training camp starts and regular season gets here, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
And if you choose,
it's a different fine.
It's a different fine, but the clock doesn't start. So to your point, there's 2 years left. And if he doesn't play that year,
then it goes back into it's still another year where they still own your rights for 2 more years plus 2 more franchise years.
Right.
So they still own him for 4 more years in essence, as far as his services, before he can really ask for that money and really hold them to the fire.
Absolutely. The last 2 years he'll get paid, but it's a risky pay, as we saw with certain players around the league when it's a 1 year, no bonus, just a straight, what is it, the top 5 salaries, whatever.
So 2 quick things, Mike, real quick. One, how do you not pay Kyler after you've paid Cliff? You brought in Cliff to coach Kyler.
Yep.
So if you're going to take care of one, it's kind of like what you saw with Lynch and what you saw with Kyle Shanahan. Those guys were joined at the hips. They both signed 6-year contracts at the same time. So when you got Kyler Murray and you've got Cliff Kingsbury, you brought one in for the other. You're supposed to take care of both of them for the same amount of time. So why is it taking so long? Is it because you're still mad because he scrubbed his account and he took the Cardinals off his social media? Are you trying to send a message? Are you trying to teach him a lesson? Or are you saying that you haven't seen enough of him to say that he is your franchise quarterback and you want him to prove it just a little bit more?
What happens if, let's flip the script the other way. So you've made your point. They don't have to do it.
They don't have to.
Let's say they, for whatever reason, they do.
Okay.
Sometime between now and training camp.
Okay.
4 at 45.
4 at 45 per?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of side eyes in that locker room. I think there's going to be a lot of players in that locker room because you can say what you want. I don't know if he's that leader that you need to be as a quarterback in today's NFL with the money that you make and the concessions that are made for you. Are you that guy that's going to be worth 45 on and off the field?
Yep.
Because that 45 is not just for your play on the field, by the way.
No.
That 45 is you represent this organization.
You are the face of the franchise.
You are the face on and off the field. So the decisions that you make on and off the field are going to make a huge difference in how this team is perceived and how they think about him.
It's what we love about the NFL. We're sitting here at the end of May, and, contracts got to happen. It's fascinating. It's fascinating just to kind of watch this play out. And it's kind of interesting. Again, it's hard to compare the two, right? You talk about DeAndre Ayton and Kyler Murray. They're completely separate teams, obviously, completely separate situations.
Yeah.
But the intangibles that kind of hold them together are interesting. And to have them both play out in front of us right now in the same city, doing what we do, it's kind of fun.
And the thing that's so crazy is if you're Kyler Murray, the one DeAndre that you're really most upset at is your DeAndre Hopkins, because he's not going to be on the field the first 6 games. Because wouldn't he look a whole lot better throwing to DeAndre Hopkins than he would all of these other guys that are on the roster right now? I just think when you think of his production, a lot of that has gone in the area of number 10.
By the way, see the end of 2021 for an exhibit on exactly what you're talking about. It's the performance on the field, but I think it's to your point about why you have if you're the Cardinals, if you're Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim, why there's a pause
there you go.
in terms of do we put the pencil to the paper and give him and his agent what they're asking for. It's because you saw, is he dependent on or what? You saw how the performance on the field suffered, but more importantly, you saw
the attitude.
The demeanor of the quarterback was
attitude.
so impacted.
And oh, by the way, who has the same agent as Kyler Murray? That would be the head coach. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Be his head coach.
His head coach,
Yeah,
the one that they're joined at the hip at. All of that I get, except there is no salary cap for coaches. It's a decision, but you can pay your coach whatever you want.
Yeah, you can pay your coach, but when you start talking about remember how we talked about the relationship with Lynch and Kyle Shanahan?
Yeah, I get
so
it.
now you brought him in to coach him specifically.
I get it.
And they share the same agent. So one's getting paid, and then he's got to hear his other client be like, "Hey, what's going on with my situation?"
Yeah, okay.
That's a very tenuous conversation that I'm sure they've had a few times.
So we've given our opinions on this. Sean, go off mute for a second. I want a yes or no. Just I'm going to point at you, and we're going to give a yes or no. Does Kyler Murray get a new contract before the start of this season?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I think the Cardinals cave. It's unfortunate, but I think they do. And you're 100% right. They hold all the cards, no pun intended. They do, but I think they cave. However,
if he does, he's done. If Steve Keim caves in this situation, his credibility is done.
Yeah.
That's a topic for a whole different conversation around that.
And I heard this.
I got you, but
yeah. But I heard this take. I want to say it was Colin Cowherd. It was somebody. I believe it was Colin Cowherd who said, "What makes." And I think he's also pro pay Kyler and just do it and get it over with.
Yeah.
But he says what makes him the exception to the rule, if you look at the last few quarterbacks who came up on that fifth-year option, teams are having them play on it. Lamar, Baker. What makes Kyler different? What makes Kyler get that contract after year 3 when those other names didn't?
Well,
you know what I mean? So
Lamar didn't want it. That's one. He waited smartly. He waited. Because he knew he had that MVP in his corner that says,
his resume.
My resume says I'm going to get top dollar. So he waited on Deshaun Watson. He waited on Josh Allen. He waited on oh my God, why am
Aaron Rodgers got a contract.
Aaron Rodgers, but Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh,
Patrick
Mahomes.
He waited on these guys. I can't believe I forgot that name of all names. He waited on those guys to see what the market was because he knew he had something that those other guys didn't. And long as you have that one thing that they don't, you can always say, okay, give me that plus a little something on top of it.
And the way the teams now, and rightfully so, but teams build around the strengths of the quarterback that they have, and that Baltimore offense is built around his
more than any quarterback in the
incredible physical abilities.
Even more than Aaron Rodgers.
Way more than Aaron Rodgers because it is built, and it's the same thing. Hell, it's the same offensive coordinator as what Kaepernick and the Niners and Jim Harbaugh did in that situation. Same exact. This offense is built around his unique abilities, and so they you can't pivot off of that.
No,
quickly. I mean, he holds the cards as well.
If you try to, it's a total tear down,
complete rebuild.
And I'm not going down this just to throw it out there. That's what makes the 49ers situation so weird. Like, you couldn't have two different quarterbacks between Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance.
You can't throw away a guy that's taking you to 2 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl.
But I'm just saying,
you can't throw that away.
For an unproven quarterback, when your team's ready to win.
Right, and but you make a really good point. Your team is constructed around, it has an identity, and your quarterback fits that identity.
I think the 49ers, though, could be a quick pivot because that Kyle Shanahan running game, and you would know better than me, B-Train, but the running game that they bring to the table, anytime you talk about a Shanahan, right, you're going to get that running game. But if they want to utilize Trey Lance's ability to be mobile, get out of the pocket, run that read option game, they can do so.
Yeah.
And they're built to run the football there.
Which goes back to your transformation of the NFL. Mm-hmm. It went from the big guys like the Dallas Cowboys to an Alex Gibbs, the late great Alex Gibbs, who wanted a smaller, quicker offensive lineman. He wanted guys that were like 280, 290 that could move because it became a zone
blocking scheme. Yeah.
That zone blocking scheme became the new norm.
Yep.
And you saw it in Atlanta, you saw it in Denver, and now you're seeing it in San Francisco. That they put a lot of pressure on that defensive end. He's got to make a decision. He's either going to close and they're going to boot you, or he's going to play it slow, and that running back is going to gash you for 200 yards every game.
Wrapping up, Arizona Cardinals selected to be on HBO's Hard Knocks in season.
Right, so hang on to those. That's making it.
And which we'll talk about later on in Pump the Brakes.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Craig Staff's already sent that one to me.
Yeah, buddy.
I like the way you think. So we'll get to that later on in the podcast.
Yeah, that's called a tease.
Stick around.
Well done.
We'll get to it. All right, on the other side, speaking of a tease, we're going to get to the NBA playoffs, and I've got something to say about these conference finals. That's coming up next on Train and Gross.
Yeah.
Train and Gross.
Welcome back in, Train and Gross. Give us a follow on Twitter at Train and Gross. You can also subscribe and watch us on YouTube, speaking about a face for radio. That's me.
Oh, stop it.
There is a basketball game going on tonight as we record this, so you'll know the final when we start talking about it, so I don't have to give the spoiler alert. And it's a very, very much an anomaly.
What, a close game?
Lately. They're halfway through the third quarter from Miami, and Boston leads Miami 52-51.
Wow.
We have an actual game. I'm sorry. And maybe it's because the Suns are out and you're not as invested, but the conference finals have sucked.
Yeah.
They have absolutely sucked. Blowouts.
Yeah.
Like I turned on the Miami game, the other night, the Miami-Boston game.
Yeah. Not good.
All right, you want me to blow the conversation I had here in Pump the Brakes? Because I will. Here's my take on it.
What do you want to say? I don't.
No. Because I think that this is a longer conversation than what we do in Pump the Brakes. Pump the Brakes is rapid fire. You can go back, and I just looked this up while we were talking in the last segment. Since May 11th, by the way, we're recording this on the 25th. There have been 2 NBA playoff games with a point differential under 9.
Wow.
2. And the thing that's weird, like if you said like Dallas was that much better than the Suns, so that final game made sense that they won by. It was a 7-game series. These series are not being, because I think there's been one 4-game series in the entirety of the playoffs.
Yeah. Can I give you my reason why I believe this is a thing? And I think this is not good for basketball. And you can blame one player who is fun to watch, but he changed the game so much.
Steph Curry.
Thank you. And the overemphasis on the three-point jumper, because it's not always going to be there every single night. So you've got these teams who have a superior roster than the team across from them, but it doesn't matter. For instance, Exhibit A. Let's go back to Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals. 10 for 28. 20 for 43. The Warriors were 10 for 28 behind the three-point line. Dallas was 20 of 43. There were 71 three-point jump shots taken in that game. That's absurd. And if you have an off night, you're going to lose by 20. And guess what? When I tune in the second half, I'm going to tune right out of TNT. Why the hell am I going to watch that? The emphasis on the three-point jump shot, though at times can be amazing to watch these guys and their ability, is, in my opinion, not great for the NBA.
Yeah. I think when you start thinking about the styles of the particular teams that are matched up, they don't match up well with each other. Dallas doesn't match up well with Golden State. I look at Boston and Miami. These two teams they're sort of mirror images of each other, but their personalities seem so different. With Miami, it seems like it goes and everything goes with Jimmy Butler. If he's on, they're on. Because Bam Adebayo has shown that he is not that all-star. Right. Everybody was all upset that he wasn't put on an all-star team. Jimmy Butler didn't even go to the all-star game because of it. Yeah. But you've seen in this series that Bam Adebayo, when you've got Al Horford on the floor and you've got Robert Williams on the floor, he shrinks in those moments. Yeah. The only game that he had any type of presence was when both of those guys were out of the game. So at some point, if you're Bam Adebayo, this was your moment to shine. This was your time to show, hey, I did belong on that all-star roster, and I did deserve a spot as one of the top players in the league. But right now, you're proving everybody right.
And Sean brought up earlier, we were talking about the NFL, the changing of the game with the kind of the disappearance of the fullback and how that's
the 2-point shot.
Right. Just style in general, though. If you go back, like say I'm a Detroit fan, okay, and you remember what basketball looked like in the '80s.
Oof.
You talk about those
rough
series,
and
right?
tough.
So if I would have watched those championship games, and then I would have went to a desert island somewhere where I had no TV, no ability to watch it, and then come back and watch the NBA today, it's not even the same game. You know, you talk about, and I 100% agree, the reliance on the three-point shot.
It's not going to be there every night.
And
as great as Steph and company are, it's not going to be there every night. So you're going to have a night when you lose by 30.
But the analytics people are so much involved in what's happening right now and why you're taking shots, because from a game of chance, it's better to shoot a 3 than it is to shoot a 2, because you get more. If you hit them, then you make more points. You know what I mean?
You go back and look at the Pistons-Celtics series, and you know the Pistons love them or hate them, right? You know, they had the 3 guards, and the key was you play the exact same way no matter who's on the floor. Vinnie Johnson,
Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars. Yep.
Up front, you had Bill Laimbeer, James Edwards, John Sally, Dennis Rodman.
Take your pick.
You had your three. You had back in the day it was Kelly Tripucka. Then you
Dennis
Rodman.
Yeah.
So you had these players that came in and fit. So if you had to go 10 deep, your style didn't. Mark Aguirre.
Yeah.
But the style did not change.
Yeah. It
did not change.
No.
Right? And Boston was the same way.
Yep.
I am not a Boston fan, so I will not name any of their names because I hate them.
Wow,
but it was the same thing.
Yep.
You know, you had the same style of play, and you knew, and you weren't, to Sean's point, you weren't beholden on your three-point shooter being hot.
That's right.
You played your game.
Right.
Pick and roll, inside, whatever it was.
But you dumped the ball inside. It was a different game. You dumped the ball inside. The game was played from the inside out. The big guys touched the ball.
Yeah.
Then they made the decision on who to kick it out to, who was open, or do they go ahead and get their boogie on one-on-one with the matchup that they have. So it's a different philosophy than what we have now. And there aren't a lot of traditional big fellas
There's
now.
no centers now.
I mean, there are, but
by position.
You got Joel Embiid and you've got Joker, who's two-time MVP. But even those guys, they don't play a traditional style of basketball. You wouldn't have found Patrick Ewing or Akeem the Dream shooting threes like Joel Embiid and the Joker. It wasn't in their arsenal. They never tried to develop that shot because it wasn't as important to the game as you see it now.
Yeah.
To Sean's point.
Yeah, and I think that's to Sean's point. It's probably better that we talked about it here because it's not a pump the brake topic, but you're beholden to that, and you can see it. And you know, now in 2022, the people that work for the network, they're so good, they're so quick. You get that instant stat, or you can watch it on your phone as you're watching the game.
Sure.
And you know, I remember watching. Sorry to bring this up again. Game 7, the Mavericks and the Suns. I kept the live stats on my phone because I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
What I was seeing from the Dallas Mavericks.
Crazy. It's crazy.
You know, the numbers kept going up and up and up. So if we look ahead, and I don't even know. I mean, Golden State's coming out of the West, but I don't know what's going to happen in the East. Is there one that matches up better so that we at least have a finals?
Boston matches up better.
So you think Boston Golden State's a better matchup than Miami Golden State?
Yes, because Miami is too dependent on Jimmy Butler. They go as Jimmy Butler goes. And they've got other players, but they don't really have solid guys. They've got a lot of guys that are good, but they don't have any guys that you just fear. You don't fear anybody on the roster with the Miami Heat. You know what I mean? Like you go up and down their roster, there's nobody. If I throw a few names at you, you're not going to be like, nah, they don't pose that big of a threat. You know, you talk about Tyler Hero. He's not a guy that's just you're going to be sleeping late at night or you know, trying to figure out how you're going to slow this guy down.
Tyler Hero's good for post-game comedy, and that's about
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good shooter. He comes off the bench. He does a specific thing, but he doesn't give you that fear that you would see when you start looking at the players that Boston has. You talk about Jaylen Brown. He can take a game over. Jason Tatum. He can take a game over. You're talking about the reigning defensive player of the year in Smart. He's a guy that can take a game over. Even Al Horford has shown he can turn back the clock every now and again and give you a 30-piece wing dinner. You know what I'm saying? Like, I look at that roster, there's just more capable guys than what Miami has and what they throw at you right now.
So that's probably what we're looking at. Because again, this game's they're 2-2, so game 5, that means it's in Miami.
Yeah.
And you know, if Boston can get that game, they go back home with the chance to close it out. And I think, obviously, stating the obvious, I think you agree with me, Golden State will close out Dallas when they get back to San Francisco. And again, if you heard the start of the podcast, you know we spent a little bit of time on this and played some sound from Steve Kerr. So we know the reason why. But, you know, you made the point, which I think is a good one, about the respect that is shown Steve Kerr from that locker room, from the leaders on that team, there was no way they were going to win that game last night in Dallas.
Mike, no other coach in the NBA, in my opinion, other than maybe you have to go back a few years with Greg Popovich and the crew that they had.
Yep.
With Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Parker, and those guys.
Fair.
They were attached to the hip of their coach.
Yep.
They took their cues from Pop. When you look at this Golden State Warriors team right now, the three-headed monster that runs this team, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, they love Steve Kerr. And the fact that they take, attitude is a reflection of leadership. And I thought last night, Steve Kerr said it poignantly in his pregame press conference. I'm not even answering any basketball questions. I'm not, my mind, I'm here physically, but I'm a million miles away from this arena because my mind is elsewhere. It's about 400 miles west in Uvalde, Texas, worried about those 19 babies and those 2 teachers that were senselessly murdered.
Yeah, and so we'll see Golden State coming up. They go back home with the chance to close out the Mavs, and I think that will happen. All right, that's going to do it. Hey, is it already that time? On the other side, we get into Pump the Brakes. I already blew one topic, so Sean had to send a missive out to the.
We're feverishly.
The crew out back that prepares Pump the Brakes. They're cursing me right now, and coming up with another topic for that, and then of course, dad jokes.
That's right.
That's coming up on Train and Grose.
Let's do it.
Getting my summer playlist ready for the road trip that we're taking later on in June. And I asked the better half, I was like, hey, you changed your mind? Can this be on the playlist?
Wow.
Still got to know, huh?
Still got to know.
Got a hard no, a quick no.
Got a hard no.
What if you just slide it in?
It was quick, though.
And we set an over-under of how long it takes her to go change that.
It wouldn't last long.
No.
No?
And for me, like if you're on a long road trip, why upset the delicate balance?
Yeah, it's true.
There's some shots that are worth taking. Mm-hmm. That ain't one of them.
No.
All right, Sean Crispin.
So who does control the majority of the music on the road trip, though? This is an important conversation. How many do you get?
I think it's the driver. The driver gets to
Thank
determine.
you. So are you driving? Yeah, because what really irritates me is if you're the one driving. All right, hang on. I'm going to hit myself.
Hold up.
If you're the one driving and the person next to you is nodding off and they have the audacity to wake up and change what you're jamming to, I'm sorry, but that's
So here's the thing.
If you're driving, I agree with B-Train. If you're driving, you're the one that needs that vibe. You're the one that needs that energy. You need the feel. You control the music.
You know what? This brings up 2 thoughts.
Okay.
Okay.
The first one is I've been married for 34 years.
Yeah.
All right.
I was married very young, of course. Pick your battles, my friend. Pick your battles.
Music in the car. All right.
But the one thing that, to be very fair, we have similar music tastes. So,
that's good. So you guys, you got it easy.
Yeah. But I did on her phone. I created Mike's Roadie. So
Mike's Roadie.
I've got about 2 hours of my
Mike's
songs, which I will sell to you guys if you'd like it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it brings up a thought, and again, we got to get to Pump the Brakes. Maybe what we do in the upcoming podcast, we create our own playlist for that summer road trip.
The hard thing is we can't play it on here.
Well, we'll just talk about it though,
Okay.
and then maybe we'll curate a list on Spotify.
All right. That's actually not a bad idea. We can create those playlists on Spotify, put them out there for the voters to
So maybe
decide.
over the course of the next couple weeks, we'll talk about it off air. We'll each bring a handful of. The 3 of us are taking a road trip.
Yeah.
We need X number of hours of songs. Let's create that list.
All right.
We
Okay.
good?
I like it.
So I will say this: if we're gonna do that, you've got to have songs that I may not normally listen to, but they get me through a drive.
Yes.
Because music on a drive is different than music that you listen to when you're sitting at home chilling.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We all
you guys- hang on.
remember the very.
Are you sing-along people on a road trip?
The longer the road trip goes, the louder it gets, and the more I sing.
B-Train?
I'll sing along. I mean, if it passes the time faster, then I'm all for it.
So, and again, I'm sorry.
I'm not doing Wheels on the Bus, though.
No, not at all. We all worked with the very talented Flash Gordon back at the radio station.
Flash Gordon.
And shout out to Flash.
We did, McCabe and I did a Saturday show. McCabe is the absolute worst at music.
Oh, gosh.
But Flash would play music, and I'd say, Flash, let's do the summer playlist.
Yeah.
And he killed it every time.
Yeah. Every time.
Killed it. All right, here we go.
Okay, pump the brakes. You guys know how this works. Sorry for the tangent again. I think I've extended this podcast by 30 minutes today. I'm going to give you guys statements floating around the world of sports, locally, nationally, you name it. You tell me if you're pumping the brakes on it or if you're rolling with it.
Here we go.
You touched on it earlier, and I said hold up on that. The Arizona Cardinals will be on Hard Knocks in season, the one that was debuted last year with the Indianapolis Colts. So that's the better one to be on, in my opinion, because you get to see the actual in season. But pump the brakes or not, the cameras of Hard Knocks in season for this team is just another unfortunate distraction.
No, I'm not pumping the brakes on that. I'm not a big fan of cameras being around. And I think the fact that they've done it before, it makes it easier for them to do it again. But the first time it happened, it was
all or nothing.
It was dumb luck. Yeah, it was all or nothing. It was dumb luck.
Yeah.
They stumbled into a 2015 season where they got to the NFC Championship game.
Right.
You have to kind of know what your team is before you commit to something like this. You got to know you've got something special. And I don't know if the Cardinals truly believe that they have something special, especially the way that this season is going to start off. Without Chandler Jones, without a DeAndre Hopkins on the field, without a lot of the pieces that we saw them have success with in last year.
Yep.
A lot of those guys are gone, and now you wonder with that start of the schedule that they have, things can kind of go south fast.
I'm with you. And I don't understand it. Somebody had to sign off on it, right? Like somebody had to.
You know, it's funny you say that. I don't know how the rules for the in-season one works because the preseason one, they have all those rules, right? You can't be a first-year head coach of a team. If your team made the playoffs last year, you're exempt from it as well. There's one or two other. Look, if you've been on it within the last 10 years, you can also say no.
All of it.
So there's all kinds of rules. I don't know about the in-season one.
And I don't know why. Honestly, I don't know why you're signing up for that. And you go back to the all or nothing.
Yeah.
Coming off that 2015 season.
Spoiler alert, it was nothing.
And everybody thought that the following year they were going to be all that.
Yeah.
Would they come out like 1-3 to start, and it was downhill from there.
Yeah.
And it was the beginning and end for that regime.
That's correct.
So I would imagine ultimately the say-so comes from the owner's office.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So why? My question is why? You don't need the publicity that bad.
All right, so earlier, number 2 here, earlier you said it's not a big deal when players miss OTAs. You said, hell, I used to miss OTAs. But when it's the quarterback, when it's Kyler, when it's Lamar, absence from OTAs matters. Pump the brakes or not?
Pump the brakes. Has the terminology changed in the last 4 years?
Of what OTA stands for?
No, of the offense.
Of the offense for the Arizona Cardinals or Lamar? No.
No.
Yeah.
So what are you learning? You're learning how to be in a huddle. You're learning how to stand and how to make checks in certain situations. It's basically football 101 and how to be a pro. These guys know how to be pros already. These are the quarterbacks. These are the faces of their franchises, respectively. And I don't think that those guys being out there, most of the times they don't even have helmets on. So no helmets, no shoulder pads, no real competition against the other side of the ball, no sweat.
USA Today ran a list. I'm pumping the brakes too.
Okay.
USA Today ran the list. Here's some notable skipping OTAs. Tom Brady.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Kyler Murray. Deebo Samuel. So there's a theme to your point. There's Tom Brady doesn't need OTA. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need OTA. And they just skipped it for whatever reason. Apparently Tom Brady's taking batting practice somewhere. And
it's funny.
Aaron Rodgers is doing what he wants.
You've been playing for 22 years.
Understood.
What do you need for a practice in June?
But the next 2 people on the list, I think, are using that, to your point, to send a message.
Yes, they are.
So take Kyler out because it's close to home. We have an opinion. Why isn't Deebo Samuel there?
Because he doesn't want to be there. He asked for a trade.
He's also sending that same message.
He's sending the same message Kyler is.
But my question was...
But Kyler doesn't want to be traded. He just wants his money.
No, the message they're saying is deal with me. Whatever I want, you need to deal with me. Trade me, pay me, whatever your message is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
I agree. Speaking of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, so the match, the golf
is that where they are?
Match that's on TNT every year, June 1st. So you got Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers facing off against Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Some trash talk going back and forth. Here's a quote from Tom Brady after Josh Allen claims that the video of Tom Brady that surfaced this week of him hitting a hole-in-one, he called shenanigans on it. Tom Brady says, I will come prepared like I always do with everything, and you know it's different. Golf blank talking is a little bit different than pro football blank talking, Brady said. Usually pro football blank talking, you usually have to back that up. Josh really hasn't backed up much on the football field in his career, let's be honest, especially playing against me. That's Tom Brady talking about Josh Allen. Okay, this is a twofold pump the brake here. Pump the brakes on those comments. Did he cross a line?
No, I'm not pumping the brakes.
I love it.
Yeah,
if anybody
I'm here for it.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm not pumping either. If anybody can say that, Tom Brady can say it.
Look,
Yeah.
Tom Brady, you don't last 22 years if you're not petty, petulant, and remember every slight that has been thrown your way.
Yeah.
He's like Michael Jordan. He's made up some slights in his career, but he needs whatever edge he needs to be able to be out there every single game and beat the brains out of all of these young guys that he calls his
And
contemporaries.
he says this, a little tongue-in-cheek, obviously, but I think there's a little bit of there's a little bit of reality behind it.
There's a lot of
There's
reality.
a lot of reality.
Well, it's kind of like our Open. What do we have? A combined 13 years in the National Football
Yeah.
League? How many combined Super Bowl rings do the two of them have?
Yeah, exactly.
7.
Yeah. I love it. Josh Allen really hasn't backed up much in the football field in his career, let's be honest, especially playing against me. The other part of this, I said it's twofold, and you kind of
love it.
You kind of almost
Nice,
went there.
great. Yeah.
The match kind of feels like it's ran its course at this point.
Well,
the brakes
I
or
think
not?
no, I'm not going to pump the brakes. No, pump the brakes. It
Okay,
has
so you're
not
still
run
looking for June 1, by the way, at TNT.
So the thing is, I think it will not have run its match. This year is the last year that you can have these guys. If you rotate guys in there,
yeah.
and you have different players in there, then it's going to be one of those you can look forward to. But if it's the same 4 guys every single year, yeah.
Hey, I'll take if you could have one that's been in it already repetitively. Give me Peyton Manning every single year.
Well, you know when it runs its course?
I love Peyton. I think he's just funny.
You know when it runs its course is when the people stop watching,
Yeah.
right?
People are going to watch this.
Yeah, but
People care about celebrities, man.
Yeah.
These guys are celebrities.
Well, and they do a good job producing it up.
it
and
is
they got the
produced
guys all
well,
mic'd up,
and it's all good.
But it's the
Sure.
personalities. The personalities are what run this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that first one had what? Peyton, Tiger, Chuck was doing the play-by-play.
Phil Mickelson.
Phil Mickelson.
Yeah.
Tiger's talking, or Barkley's making the comments like, "Oh, I didn't see a bear, but I saw some cougars out there last night." Making
God.
those kind of comments, right?
I mean, classic.
But it just made it a lot of fun. So
Speaking of Phil, I got my milk carton. I haven't seen Phil Mickelson.
he keeps
lately.
dropping out of tournaments, right? Ever since he had the little issue popping up.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about some pop culture here real quick before we wrap it up and get to B-Train's dad jokes. We have a long weekend coming up. A lot of people barbecuing. I'm going to one on Sunday, as a matter of fact. Looking forward to it. But according to a study, perfect time to show up.
Jim, your damn studies.
The perfect time to show up to a party, to a get-together you've been invited to, is 38 minutes late.
What?
38 minutes late.
How do you come up with that?
This way, this is according to the study, you're not the first person there, but you're also not the last person there making an awkward entrance, having to give an excuse. You can just show up naturally within that window, and the perfect moment is 38 minutes late. Pump the brakes on that. Or
Pump
not.
the brakes. I mean, well, first of all, 38 minutes from what? I mean,
From
are
whenever
you,
the-
are you coming? Are you setting a hard time for barbecue? Because that's the hardest thing to do.
Well, people
is
usually
to set a
say,
hard
what time
for
you want
over
people
about 4.
Yeah, come over about 4, right? All right, so you come over about 4:30.
So then you put the meat on the grill. It's going to take a couple minutes in order to do the grill. And then if you're going to have sides, how long does it take to do the sides? Are you already done with the sides? Or, like, what are the different variables that go into the time to come by?
And
Okay.
I think the other variable is the company. Like Bertrand.
All right,
One of my most enjoyable days watching football was watching Bertrand Berry watching the Notre Dame Fighting Irish
Yeah.
play in
On
his man
Saturdays.
cave.
Yeah.
It,
It's an adventure. bro.
it was an adventure. I saw a
adventure.
grown man stand up and fall directly to the floor on a play. I can't remember what happened because I
It's
was
a pass
watching.
interference.
I was watching.
He
him.
remembers.
It's a pass interference from Notre Dame, Florida State.
Oh, okay.
And David Robinson's son
Yep.
had an offensive interference, and we had them beat in Florida State, in Tallahassee, and they called.
But he said get here at 4. I got there at 4. So I enjoy the company. If it's like one of these ones where you're like, you got to go, but you don't really want to go.
Yeah, then you're 38 minutes late.
Then you do the 38
minutes late.
Because I think the reasoning behind it is sound.
Yeah,
like,
you don't want to be the first person there. Because nothing's worse than when you tell somebody, hey, we got a barbecue, 4-ish, and somebody shows up at 3:45, and you're still trying to get things.
Getting in the shower still.
You're trying to fit, because you've been cleaning and you want to get in the shower.
You've been cooking.
Right. So nothing worse than
salad.
that. So you got to show up after the agreed upon time. You have to show up after that.
But it also depends on the person who's making the request.
Yeah.
If this person is a timely person, then yeah, you show up at 4.
You guys, I'm there on time.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be ready. I'm gonna be ready to eat because I'm gonna do all the work. And 4 o'clock, I'm making plates.
Hey, and he was ready.
Does I bring you out or does I bring you out?
At 4 o'clock,
Hey.
I'm making plates.
Hey,
I'm making plates, brother.
there was an orange Gatorade when I got there. That's
was there really?
That's all I'm saying.
G2? Room
Yeah.
temperature?
Hey, that's all I'm saying.
Just what he
So
wanted.
the barbecue I'm going to, though, it's my buddy Marvin, who you guys know.
You guys make me hungry, man.
He's notorious for running late. Notorious for running late.
Oh, man, leave my man Marvin alone. Shout out to Marvin.
Notorious for getting to a place, or when he tells you to come over, it ain't ready yet. Notorious. So the 38-minute rule definitely applies
45?
going to Mark. Exactly right. So if you guys, you're more than welcome. You come this Sunday.
Wow.
30 minutes at least.
Yeah.
That works.
At least.
That works.
That's funny.
Anyway, I had one more here.
I got one.
The average American.
Oh, you go ahead.
I got one more, and then we're going to talk about that one. The average American spends more than $300 a month on impulse purchases. Pump the brakes or not on that number.
I'm not going to pump the brakes because I had to do a self-ban on myself.
On T-shirts?
On shoes.
On shoes.
Shoes. I did a year ban of myself. I didn't buy a single pair of shoes in 2021.
Is that right?
How'd that go for you?
Oh, I did it. I was able to do it. And in 2022, I've only bought 3 pair. So far. It's only 5 months in, so I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm not going to throw my shoulder out, but I've only bought 3 pairs.
So $314 is the average.
My daughter
in this
spent
study.
$200 and some on a pair of Nikes yesterday.
Oh.
This is a month, though. This is per month. This is $314 on impulse buys.
Well, that's
per
a
month.
combination of month and shoes. That's one pair of shoes,
Yeah.
and that's her month.
But think about the food, though.
That's true.
If you eat out a lot,
Yeah.
that adds up in a month.
It does.
Because you got 4 weeks in a month. So if you're doing $50-$60 a week, that adds up pretty
Number
quick.
one impulse buy in this study is clothing, so shoes would fall underneath that.
Yeah.
Right? Food and groceries is
Yeah.
second,
Yeah,
followed by household items, technology, books, takeout, toys, coffee,
Starbucks.
yeah. So
I don't drink soda.
$300.
I drink
That
soda
number
anymore.
seems high, man. So maybe just keep an eye on that.
I drink
I
soda
mean, hell,
anymore,
that
so I
checkbook.
have to drink green tea now.
All right.
I feel like impulse buys are gas now. Like you gotta make business decisions on gas.
yeah. Do I really need to go here?
How far am I gotta go and what's my benefits when I get there?
Right.
Turn the air conditioning down one notch.
Last one, and I'm actually going on Friday night.
All right, well, so you answered it. Top Gun remake, it's out.
Top Gun Maverick, getting reviews through the roof, by the way.
Amazing review.
No
Yes.
Val Kilmer, and I know why he's not in there, but no.
But they're putting him in there
At the very beginning.
in a roundabout way.
No.
Spoiler
No.
alert.
Well, it's not a spoiler. It's been, they talk about it all over the place how they took his voice from past
Yeah.
acting
Nah.
gigs and
Nah.
put his voice into this film.
Nah.
You're not into it?
I haven't
Pumping the
seen
brakes on?
I haven't seen the original.
I was going to ask you that. Did you see the original?
I haven't
Oh,
seen the original.
If there's no nostalgic value, then why bother? Yeah.
The movie was what it was. Back you think about what those movies were in the 80s.
See, I was a young kid when that came
But
out, so that was like,
At that time,
Awesome.
though,
Look at this.
But even then, for
Yeah.
the cinematography in that thing,
yeah.
it was amazing. And the soundtrack,
course.
again, was amazing.
Kenny Loggins.
Among others.
Among others.
Yeah, see, you know
But
the
Kenny
music.
Loggins. I know
Can
them.
always count on B-Train or at least know the music.
For sure.
Yeah.
Soundtracks were big.
That I knew.
So another movie, just on a side note, another movie I've still not seen
right.
all the way through. Dirty Dancing.
What? How's that possible?
I have not seen.
How
I
can
have
you
not
be
seen,
a person of your age and not accidentally see the whole thing?
I have not, and I mean, they used to put it on like when you had the last day of school when nobody was doing anything.
Right.
I still haven't watched the whole thing.
Gotta be honest.
I have not. I have only watched maybe 10, 15 minutes of Dirty Dancing.
Can we be honest amongst friends here?
Yeah.
It is an overrated movie. There's nothing great.
It's not
about,
even rated. I haven't watched it.
There's
so
nothing great about Dirty Dancing. Am I right, Grose? It just is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, but you throw around this overrated so much.
Are my overrateds overrated?
Wow.
You do my math analogies.
Yeah.
McCabe is terrible at music.
Yeah.
You're
You're full of it. My
movie-
movie reviews are right on par.
Wow.
It's pretty
Right
suspect.
on par. Right on par. So am I wrong about? All right, let's count them. Am I wrong about Dirty Dancing?
If I'm sitting here listening to this or watching this podcast, hey, did you hear that? Sean Crespin says it's overrated. We should watch it. So we're going to see a spike up.
True or false? Or pump the brakes or not? Am I wrong about Dirty Dancing?
It's not overrated. It might not be your favorite.
It's just,
What's overrated?
Do they make it out to be like this? I mean, to the fact that he felt compelled to tell us, I've never even seen that movie. Like, it's held in such high regard.
Yeah.
It's overrated.
Okay.
I mean, okay.
I don't think I'm wrong on this.
I don't think it's overrated.
And I also don't think I'm wrong about Titanic.
Oh, I hate Titanic.
Overrated.
3 hours long, dry ass movie.
Yep.
Bring on the water.
And with
Spoiler alert.
boat goes down. All right, that's all we got.
Spoiler alert.
So I asked you if you're over the match. Are you over these nostalgic reboots?
Yes.
I'm way over it.
I mean,
can we just stop?
Is there an original idea?
Oh my God! Can we just stop?
I haven't seen an original idea for a movie in at least 2 years.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys know how this works.
I know.
It's time for B Train's
Is that time?
dad joke of the week. He's gonna give us a dad joke. He's gonna deliver it. We're gonna give him one of these no matter what. If it's a quality dad joke, you're gonna hear the laughter.
Yep.
Yep. If it's above and beyond, we're gonna tell all of our friends. You get the standing O. But there is that chance where the joke just doesn't land. I mean, it is a dad joke. Sometimes they don't land, and you're gonna leave one of those.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's our grading system. Gross. B-Train.
Take it
Got
away.
the specs on. Here we go.
What do you call a factory that makes good products?
What do you call it?
A satisfactory.
I like that one. It's pretty good, actually. That one's really good, actually.
So did you practice that? Or
I did not
you pick
practice
that on
that.
the fly.
No,
right
I
there?
did not practice
You just
that.
opened it up and that's what you landed.
No, I saw it, but I didn't practice it.
So
the delivery is key.
to pull
It's
the
always
curtain
key.
back between segments, I knew it was going to be a good one because I saw him read it and giggle.
Stop it.
To himself
Stop
in between
it.
segments.
Stop it. I did not. No. Stop it.
Between segments, he's over. I knew it was going to be a good one.
That's not true, people.
Spoiler alert.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is not true. I resent that insinuation.
Have I ever lied to you?
Right.
Not so far as you know. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Episode 73, Train and Grose. Don't forget, find us on Twitter at Train and Grose. Subscribe on YouTube and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you next time.
We'll holla.